Hello everyone, and welcome to Classy Whale. To celebrate getting 1,000 subscribers, today I'm going to be answering some of your questions. First up, Chach, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Lawson asks, how did you come up with the name Classy Whale? Well, back in the day, we had a whale-shaped paperweight on our dining room table, and I remember remarking at one point that it was a classy whale, and that that would be a good name for a YouTube channel. About 6 months later, my sister and I started this channel, and she reminded me that I'd come up with the name Classy Whale several months earlier. So that's how we got the name. For a couple years we posted skits and other silliness, which of course I unlisted when I converted this into more of a transit and travel related channel. But of course you totally can't watch them on my playlists tab. They're very silly and probably not worth your time. But yeah, they're totally not accessible on the playlists tab of this channel. Al Beck asks, hey Caleb, what person or experience caused you to love trains? What sparked your interest? Well, I think it originally started when my grandparents got me a Brio wooden railway set, and then that only grew when my parents got our family a membership to the Railroad Museum of Pennsylvania in Strasburg. By that point, I was hooked. Transportation Journeys asks, what is your favorite Amtrak route based on scenery? Well, I would say the California Zephyr is probably my favorite for the long-distance routes, and for the corridor routes, it's a tie between the Pacific Surfliner and the Lancaster County segment of the Keystone. Quadruple H asks, were you born and raised in Lancaster? Where did you go to high school and college? Well, I have lived my whole life in Lancaster. I was born there, and I currently still live in that area. I went to high school at my house, I was homeschooled, and then for college I went to Gordon College, which is a small Christian liberal arts college on the Massachusetts North Shore. Fun fact, the bike race I filmed with Miles was the day before my graduation. Alex Davis asks, are people in Philly allowed to mispronounce Lancaster when talking about our beloved Lancaster Avenue? No, they are not. Lancaster Avenue is built in the direction of the city of Lancaster and therefore must be pronounced the same way. Andrew Marizani asks, if you had to restart college with a different major, which one would you pick and why? Well, I'm really glad I majored in kinesiology, with a pre-occupational therapy focus, and I'm going to occupational therapy grad school. But I think it would be cool to work in transit, especially with regards to disabilities related to transit. But even then, I'm glad I picked the major I did. I guess if I had to restart college, I would go with psychology, just because that's super cool and could probably get me the same jobs. Kira Martin asks, what is the definition of a train? Kira, we have been arguing about this for 5.5 years. For the last time, a train is not a vehicle that makes the chuff-chuff sound. It's multiple rail cars linked together, running on track. Does that mean the Norristown High-Speed Line's not a train? Miles in Transit asks, what is the best part about Harrisburg? Goodness, hard to say. Probably the fact that you can leave it on an electrified higher-speed train. On a serious note, it has good public space next to the Susquehanna River. Brainbrain asks, what's the fastest you've ever traveled on a train? Probably about 310 kilometers per hour. Conversion into miles per hour is shown on the screen. On G79, which is China's express high-speed train between Beijing and Hong Kong. Julia Kenny left me a nice comment saying that I should do a video about media. But unfortunately, I'm not sure when I'm going to have time to get there, so that's going to have to wait. The Toronto Transit Channel asks, Philadelphia or Pittsburgh? I would have to say Philadelphia, but it's pretty darn close. Philadelphia just has more stuff. He also asks, high platforms or low? Absolutely high platforms. It shows people using wheelchairs and other mobility aids that they matter, and I think they just look cooler. Mark Hufstetler asks, assuming you had a month to travel and all the money you needed to take a dream trip of a lifetime, where would you go? I've got it all planned out. I'd fly to Singapore and take a mix of day trains, overnight trains through Malaysia, Thailand, Cambodia, and Vietnam before ending in Kunming, China, From there, I'd take a high-speed train to Shanghai, ride to the airport maglev, and then fly back to the States from there. J-Corp asks, which U.S. city and which international city would be your top choice if you had to move somewhere else? I would say if cost wasn't an issue, I'd want to move to Manhattan because everything's in Manhattan. Internationally, I'd have to say Seoul, just because like the convenience store food is amazing. Honestly, I would move to Seoul just for the convenience store kebab. The Mansfield bus guy asks, when was the first time you ever rode a train? Well, that would have to be the Strasburg Railroad, the book I wrote when I was 4, my first train trip above the Keystone. It was kind of false advertising. It was my first Amtrak trip, but not actually my first train trip. Obviously, Bobby asks, will you ever play Roblox again? If so, make sure to play my SEPTA regional rail game, row-scale recreation of the Lansdale-Doylestown line. Well, obviously, Bobby, I usually only play Roblox in my videos when the Roblox map matches a place I've actually been. So I would actually have to go to Wayne Junction in order to put that in a video. Now if I did, I would walk all around the Roblox map and show it off and put the link in the description and say it was amazingly done. But again, I would have to actually make the trip to Wayne Junction to make that happen. The Southern Foamers asks, what is your favorite color? I would have to say it's a tie between blue and green. I really like cool colors, although I think RTA does a good job with warm colors, so maybe I'm warming up to those too. Aiden Shoneman asks, will you return to the Western Maryland Scenic Railroad to ride behind 1309 on May 6th? I will not be returning on May 6th, but I do intend to get down there sometime this year, at least to see it. Jonathan's Rail Fan asks, will you do a video where you go to the New York City subway? Well, I actually did one last year, made out of Instagram stories I shot before Classy Will kind of was a thing, and you can check it out here. But I'm also going to post a longer, more in-depth video about the subway later this spring, so stay tuned for that. Cedric asks, how would you rate the RRTA as a whole? Network strength, frequency, experience, etc. Which would you like improved? Well, I'm not actually going to answer that question here, because, well, stay tuned. Morgan64 asks, what's your favorite train station in both form and function? Well, I would have to say my favorite worldwide is London St. Pancras. My favorite in the US, 30th Street Station in Philadelphia. NJTE asks, do you plan on running for NJT at some point? Michael Bell asks, you are given a free train ticket on any train trip in the world. What train ride do you choose? Well, given that this is free, I might as well pick a train that's rather expensive. Most train tickets around the world I could afford with the salary I have as a paraprofessional. But there is one that kind of sticks out like a sore thumb, and that is the Via Rail Canadian. That train is pricey. I don't know why. It's pretty similar to Amtrak long-distance routes that are much cheaper. But if the ticket's free, absolutely the Via Rail Canadian. And now a special shout out to Miles in Transit. Socket. Brendan Yu asks, what rolling stock should St. Louis use for commuter rail service? Well, I didn't know St. Louis was going to get commuter rail, but if it does, I really like BuyLevels, but I think that if they're going to order a new set of BuyLevels, they should order them with the sort of wheelchair ramps that the Brightline cars use in Florida. Currently, the BuyLevels used by New Jersey Transit and the MBTA and the like, they aren't the most wheelchair accessible. Conductors have to manually put down metal platforms, and those can be a bit rickety. So instead, I think it would be cool to have some kind of sturdier, mechanized boarding system. And then maybe a slightly larger mezzanine for a couple of wheelchair users per car. An engineer asks, Have you ever taken the Princeton Dinky? And if so, what do you think about it? Well, I actually have. I did a video all about it back in December, and I think it's pretty cool, but I think it would probably make more sense to replace it with a light rail, sort of like the River Line. Bernhild Valkyrie asks, what are your favorite cities in the USA and in the world? I would say favorite city in the USA, probably New York, with Boston and Philadelphia as close seconds. And in the world, I gotta go with Hong Kong, just in how it's laid out. It's very dense, very walkable, and full of all sorts of interesting things. Jared asks,
what is the best cheesesteak you've ever had, and why is it not in Philadelphia? Answer the question.
I've only ever had cheesesteaks in Philadelphia, although my first ever cheesesteak was from Jersey Mike's in 30th Street Station, which up until 18-something wasn't actually, for the land it is on, wasn't actually Philadelphia. It was some other city. So, I guess that's your answer?
That will suffice for today.
John Chambers asks, what got you interested in riding trains and other public transit systems? Well, I've loved trains since I was little, and watching people like Miles in Transit got me into transit systems as more of a broader concept. So including buses, including, things that don't run on rails. I hope to eventually work in transit at some point in some capacity, again, with a focus on people with disabilities. Dalen Davies asks, what are my thoughts on Amtrak's guest rewards? Really my only thought on that is I need to make an account with them. The Fair Player asks, why is the Keystone Corridor so terribly winterized/weatherized? Well, truth be told, I don't know, but that would be a good topic for a future video, perhaps next winter. Falcon Adam asks, if I could pick any replacement for Amtrak's aging equipment, what would it be? Well, I definitely will not miss the Am fleets when they're retired. I do like their seating arrangements, the big cushy seats they have on there. So I'd want the hypothetical replacement Amtrak equipment to have that quality of ride. But I also really like how efficient dual mode train sets are, like the ones used on the Great Western Railway in the United Kingdom. So I like that Amtrak's looking for dual mode sets themselves to run trains like the Keystone. Yeah, the comfort of the old stuff, the efficiency, and big windows of the new stuff would be my ideal pick. And with that, I think I've gotten through everybody's questions. I apologize if I missed anybody, but thank you so much for commentating. Thank you so much for watching my videos. Y'all are a great audience, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.